Get them on.
We are on.
What's happening?
Yeah. The usual.
The usual. What is the usual these days?
Running around.
Good deal. Good deal. So tell me what's happening in your world in the market right now? Let's talk about the state of the market. I'm hearing some different stuff, but I want to hear what you're hearing.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what, a lot of people are actually bringing up the conversation of the market turning. More and more people are they're actually bringing it up to me. We're talking about sellers.
Okay.
Interest rates going up. They're like, yeah, I bet the market's slowing down already because of interest rates. So they're initiating those conversations, which is fairly new, right? Haven't heard that in a while. So I think that the sentiment out there with the consumer is like, look, we're getting very close to a shift if it hasn't started already, and some even think that we've started. Does that sounds familiar to you, or?
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of sellers or owners. I shouldn't say all of them are sellers, but a lot of owners. The conversation in the last 2 weeks has at some point has brought up as the interest rates affected anything or things slowing down. So it's on their mind. I said the other day, it sounds like because a couple of them that I talked with, they're gonna sell, but now they're trying to figure out, is the market gonna is it slowing? Is it not? They're just on the fence. And it almost seems like there's a line of sellers forming. It's kind of like, they start talking about it and maybe they're the ones that have been waiting and finding the right time for them. And now they're starting to see this as a reason to maybe get more serious. I've actually had one of the last ones that I listed in the last 10 days. Their urgency was through the roof and everybody looks at news and stuff and interprets it differently. Their interpretation was, we want on and we want out quick. So they were very adamant. There was no wondering. His opinion, regardless of what I said, his opinion was, I want in and I want out. So it's interesting to see everybody's it's in that period of time, I think, where everybody's looking at the things a little bit differently and interpreting them a little bit differently, but conversations are happening.
Yeah, I think people's perspective is definitely changing, and the conversations are starting to happen. I did a search right before we got on here, just kind of for shits and giggles to see what will come up when you put in real estate market, and there's definitely a lot more articles and media talk about market crashing, price, interest rates going up, things like that. So there's that, and the consumers see that.
Yeah.
Right? The moment it starts popping up in the news more frequently, the moment you start seeing it, Facebook is the ultimate test. When people start talking about it on Facebook, that means it's past this already, right? It's already shifted.
Yeah. Facebook's so much more localized. That's not the national core logic numbers. That's the neighbor saying, I've been on the market for 4 weeks, and then somebody else says, yeah, me too, and I didn't get any offers, and I think that's a good indicator of, when you start seeing that stuff, it's probably already starting to happen. One of the things that I see happening, so that I think we just talked about this in the last few weeks, with sellers saying, I'd sell, but I don't know where to go. The new one that I'm starting to hear is, yeah, I'd like to sell. It doesn't even come up that I don't know where to go. They're saying, but how am I going to turn around and sell and give up this interest rate that I just refied at in the summer of 2020 or 2021, and then turn around and go and not only buy at the higher interest rate, but buy at today's price. So you run the numbers on some properties, that can be a pretty significant increase. You're in it fall of 2020 at 2.85 or something, and now you're over 5 and maybe going up 30% on your purchase price. That could be some big numbers.
No question. That's a great point. Yeah, that's going to be the big objection coming up. So even if inventory starts to rise, which will eliminate the objection of, I have nowhere to go, right? Now they've got a place to go. Now, yes, they can sell at a good price, sell high, possibly buy high, but now you throw in the factor of they're going from a 2.7, 2.8 interest rates to now 5.5 or 5.25. That's going to be the next objection. It's like, why do I want to get out of this loan that I'm in right now with these low interest rates and be able to and go into something that's much higher? So I think that'll be the next wave of objections that we get from sellers. I think you're spot on with that one.
Yeah. So if you're, if somebody's out there renting, then I can see maybe that will create some inventory on the rental market, because, and it would be tough to, if you could qualify to buy something else, it'd be tough to, just get rid of that property at that interest rate. And so maybe people turn around and make those rentals by default if they're not willing to sell them.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell exactly what you were talking about a second ago by when you were talking to mortgage guys. So the refinancing industry is gone. There's nothing left. It got decimated. Yeah. So I think it's down like 95%. So these are people that could be or would be sellers if their objection of this past year that, hey, there's nowhere to go. Once that changes, it's going to be tough to get them to give up that interest rate. Now, you guys out there, whoever's watching, let us know, how's your market doing? Are you starting to see any inventory increases? Are you seeing days on the market increase? Kind of chime in a little bit. This was one comment. Definitely more inventory and bidding wars getting old. The market is adjusting slowly. Yeah, there's many agents that I've talked to across the country that are saying, just that they're starting to feel a little bit, whether it's backed by data or not. Some may just kind of just have that gut feeling based on the conversations, like you mentioned. What are people saying, and their gut feeling because they've been in the industry so long. But some are actually seeing data where there's some changes in the market. Some markets are already changing.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because I know you run your numbers, and I have, my team runs daily, weekly, monthly, and then year-to-date numbers on some key metrics and stuff. And might be worth just mentioning, like, we're always doing that because we just like to know where they're at. It's good talking points when you're on a listing appointment. It's good to know. But in a time like this, that has the potential for changes and shifts, and there's always conversation. You really want to have some confidence in your conversations. And the confidence comes from knowing what the facts are, and then being able to form your own opinions about it. So if you think about, we know sales is a game of confidence. We want to go into our conversations and really feel comfortable and be able to communicate effectively. But the way that you gain that confidence is understanding, like, what's happening and the facts behind it, and then formulating your opinion or formulating questions to be able to talk to your clients and engage in that conversation. Where you lack confidence, and these conversations get really, really, people avoid them, or you get into them and you can actually lose rapport or get the client kind of thinking, man, I wonder if they know what they're talking about, is when you just hear things. So maybe you hear a comment or you read one article, and then you try to, without really kind of knowing the whole picture, you go out and you try to regurgitate that and make sense. Right. So, like, the amount of data that's out there, if you've never kept track of market numbers, start tomorrow. Actually, start today. And start looking at those so you can see the changes, because that's what's going to give you the ability to go in and have really strong conversations with people. You don't have to make any declarations like, I declare this is going to happen or I predict this, but you can have the conversation and go, all right, this is based off of things that I look at all the time. Mm-hmm. And I just think that makes such a difference in what the client, feels in terms of your capability.
No question about that. Especially during the transition phase, right? So if a potential homeowner talks to 7 or 8 agents, which everybody's getting that many phone calls or not from different agents, and 7 out of the 8 are talking about, this is a good time to sell. The market's hot. And then you, by doing your data, can actually get deeper into the conversation and say, look, this is what's been going on. This is where prices have gone to. But now let's take a look at this other variable that no one's paying attention to right now, and look at this inventory that's growing. So by knowing that data, number one, which I think is a great piece of advice, everybody should be doing it, and then being able to have a different sounding conversation than the other agents in the market, that alone will get you places.
Yeah.
But knowing the data really well and going deep and actually informing the consumer on stuff, dude, you got a client for life, especially right now, because as the market shifting, you're going to see more and more news that's going to be negative, right? Because that's what they do. That's what they're good at.
Right.
So they're going to be scaring people. There's going to be all kinds of stuff. Foreclosures up 95%, sales down 40% in metropolitan areas. So you're going to hear those kinds of titles, right? What you have to do, and that's gonna get consumers confused and uncertain. That's where you got to step in and be able to get them grounded, get them comfortable, give them data, okay, give them facts to look at, and they're gonna appreciate that. So the more hectic it gets out there, the more confusion there is out there, the more valuable you become as an expert in your market.
Yeah, absolutely. I can remember like in 2007 through 2000, probably the end of 2009. By 2009, everybody kind of knew what was going on. But those 2 years, there were like, I believe clients could pick up the phone, talk to different agents, and in every conversation ask what's going on, and they'd hear something different and from each one of them. And most of the time, what they were hearing was whatever the agent thought was going to serve the agent in the conversation. It wasn't about, hey, here's what's going on. How is this going to potentially affect you? And then getting down to like, really, let's talk about motivation, which motivation is the only thing that people ever make any decisions on anyway. So might as well just get into that part. But people were, if you called an agent and asked them, it's 2008. Do you think this is a good time to buy? Oh, yeah. It's a good time to buy. And then if somebody came and said, hey, I'm just thinking about maybe selling, is a good time. So, oh yeah, you got to get out of here. I mean, this market's crazy. You got to bail. It's going to, it's falling off a cliff. Right. So I think it's the same now. Like they're in that confusion, that uncertainty of agents shows through to the clients. So if you can be the one that says, hey, here's what's going on. Here's some data. Let's see what the possibilities are. What do you think this means for you? And most people, they're not making decisions purely off that. They're making decisions on where they want to buy and sell a property. Mm-hmm. So if you can be detached from what happens in the outcome and just have a real conversation with them, you'll actually sound a lot different than most people. And to your point, Abe, the value that you get when everybody else is like, are they a buyer or a seller? What do I need to tell them?
Yeah. How do I spend this data?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Just know your stuff. And here's another thing to start paying attention to. So number one, know what your market's doing, right? And if it hasn't changed much, if it's still hot, then at least pay attention to, go back and do some research over the last 2 years and look at which properties appreciated first and then what came next and what came next after that. So typically what you're going to see is the best properties, let's just call them A, B, C, right? A being the best quality property, B being second best, C being third best, and so on and so forth. Typically, what you're going to see in the market is the A ones appreciate first in a hot market, then there's a tailwind, then the B start appreciating, then the C. So typically what's going to happen is the last classification of properties that appreciate is going to be the first one that actually depreciates. So take a look at that, okay? Like for us in our market, we're in Myrtle Beach, right? We're in a heavily tourist resort market. So it started with single family homes first. Those were the first things that went through the roof, right? Spring of 2021, we saw some crazy things happening with single family homes. Then it kind of settled off a little bit, but it stayed hot. Then we saw condos that were on golf courses go next up. And then after that, we started seeing finally oceanfront condos finally started appreciating starting December of 2021 up until last month or this month, depending on how you look at the data, right? So that shows us that the prime properties in this market are single family homes, followed by condos on a golf course, followed by condos on the oceanfront. So when the market shifts or begins to shift, the first change you're going to see is in the oceanfront condo market. So at least pay attention to that and know what was the last one up, so you can see and pay attention to that last one and see when it starts going down. And you can even talk to consumers about that. So if you have a single family homeowner and that's how your market is like ours, then you can give them some assurance. Look, I mean, single family homes, I still feel pretty comfortable about because of the demand in this area.
Mm-hmm.
But condo, oceanfront condo, this is the risk involved with holding on to something like this, and here's why, right? So being able to have those conversations, I think, is important. But like you said, if you don't know the data, you don't have the confidence to be able to have those conversations.
Yeah, exactly. And just I think I'll just reiterate, it's so important to you understanding it sounds so much different than you repeating it.
Oh yeah.
And in taking the time to actually, dig in, and nobody can predict it. Nobody's got a crystal ball. Don't worry about trying to be right, but look at the data and form an opinion on it. Because when you form an opinion on it, you can actually have a conversation about it. Nobody has to say, and I don't recommend you saying, I don't ever say this is what's going to happen, but I can ask questions and I can give my opinion on, based on what I'm seeing right now, here's some potential things. And then how do you think that's going to affect, your plans? So you don't have to try to find the right answer, but if you understand it, you're going to be a lot more comfortable with it, as opposed to just, reading the headline and then trying to repeat that and make that mean something. As things change, that becomes so obvious that it's I'm just trying to get this person to make the move that's actually going to serve me, not serve them.
Yeah, and they're going to, like you said earlier, they're going to formulate their own opinion. So regardless of what your opinion is, I mean, it's good to have one, right? But just give them the data and they're going to formulate their own opinion. And guess what? Sometimes it's going to align with yours, sometimes it's not.
Yep.
But you've done your job. Judith said that she's going to do it. So great. Yeah, Judith, I think you're going to be really glad, especially like right now in most markets, this is super early. So the sooner you start diving into the numbers and really understanding your market, the better off you're going to be able to do, and the better service you'll be able to provide to your clients and customers moving forward as things change. Yeah. Well, it's interesting that we're actually having this conversation, right? So the market's been nuts for 2 years, and now more and more of these conversations are popping up. It's coming.
Yeah, and we might be still talking about this in February 2023. Yeah. But the reality is we'll know that we're looking at snapshots on a daily, weekly basis, and there won't be any major surprises when you're keeping up with it like that. So there's no downside, unless you just like kind of going in blind to conversations, which it's exciting, but it's not very effective.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, cool. All right, Brendon, always a pleasure. Thank you all for watching. If you have any questions, just throw them in the comments, and then Brendon and I will be checking this later on, and we'll answer some of those questions. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Are we going to be on next week?
Yep.
Okay.
Sounds good.
See you, buddy. Take care.
Yep.